heard a lot of panelists discuss and presenters discuss education and technology, and I'd like to start off with saying that all of us met online at some point, and we're very close, but some of us met face-to-face, but most of us met for the first time, which was really exciting to be able to meet like this. So there's some kind of a discord about educators. Tech people do not really understand that educators are using technology, but that they're having problems. It should be called not ed tech, it should be called tech ed, because the discord between the technology developers and the educators don't go together. I know that this isn't something that is realized in the public, but I think it's time that we collaborated, and that if you want the technology to work and you want students engaged and users or consumers, whatever you want to call the client or the customer, the student, we need to join forces, collaborate, and start developing technology that doesn't frustrate the student. And the result of frustrated students is frustrated teachers who stop using technology the minute they see that their students are not engaged and that they're frustrated. So I think it's time that we join forces. What connects all of us, besides the fact that we teach, whether fully online or we use technology in a face-to-face environment, is that we all came to WizIQ. And what we have to say, you'll hear what we have to say about WizIQ, is that WizIQ is the only technology company that I'm aware of where I could ask for service. I could ask them to make changes, and they have made many changes. I've been collaborating with the tech people at WizIQ since 2007, and I can assure you that the collaboration is amazing. And you'll hear more about that, I think, as we go. So feel free to ask questions, have them ready, and we'll get started with our first speaker. What we're going to do is we're going to speak for a couple of minutes, we'll add some background information, and then we'll get to some questions. Well, you've got a microphone, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Nellie. Since our theme is engaging learners in online education, so on the basis of our experience of offering, means my experience of dealing with open and distance learning, and then online learning, and very recently offering of MOOCs for on various disciplines and with various organizations. There are certain critical factors which we believe be there to keep the learners engaged. Like one is the teaching and content quality, the high availability of online services, as and when any student or the learner needs kind of service, it be there, and online mentoring or facilitation, so that the students, they don't feel, which is one of the chief factors in distance education, as the isolation of learner, which we believe it has to be dealt in such a way that the student feels that, okay, there is a continuous kind of support with them. And the most importantly, the learning should be a joy. It should not be a fatigue for the learners. So that's why they feel, keep themselves as the engaged with them. And the learning should scale so that you keep on adding to the body of knowledge. And particularly if it is for online courses, creation of online courses should be as easy as to take them. Professor Pant is here. Somewhere in September 2013, we ran the first OER MOOC here, and there were certain lessons learned from them, that how we were able to, it was a 4-week MOOC on spreading awareness about open educational resources. Dr. Nellie was also one of the facilitators with us in that MOOC, and around 1,600 participants from 80 countries, they participated in that. And we found that there were certain features and that the online interactions, they were done, of course, using the WizIQ platform. To keep our students engaged into that, we motivated them, prompted them to have their entries on the blog so that they can express their views and then share their thoughts through some microblogging, say we use Twitter, and then all the tweets, they were through Storyfy, collated at one place and then found them. And all the experts who interacted with them through online interactions, they gave exercises at the end of their session with the expectation that the learners, they would attempt them and then put the entry in their blog or will tweet about them so that, and then through Storyfy, they will all be compiled at one place. And the chief factor was the regular motivation to the learners on all the stages of pre-course stage, during the course and after the course. In addition, we have been, me and Nellie have been associated for a long time, and through Wiki Educator, and particularly every month, we try to find out the innovative pages, innovative users who update their Wiki Educator page and declare them as the user page expo winner for the month. Wiki Educator is a platform where we provide the training in both face-to-face as well as online settings for e-content development. And it's also a sort of an online training where we have found that to engage, there are certain methodologies which have been evolved, like interaction through discussion page or the talk page of the user to keep them interacting, and the user page interaction. So like I visit the page of Mr. Tekriwal, he visits my page, puts the comments, and then it prompts, keeps them engaged into that. And to engage in some sort of collaborative projects so that together they contribute, and it being an open resource may be used by everyone. So these are certain things which we have found that in an online course they can contribute and make the engagement quite effective. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So what you heard actually is about Wiki Educator. The three of the panelists were involved. The idea is that you can engage learners very easily. It's just a question of having a platform that's suitable. Thank you.
I'm a maths educator, and I kind of love teaching mathematics always. And WizIQ just happened to me in 2007. So I'm just going to share a little bit about my story, and then the other speakers can take onwards. So it was all about, in 2007, I was on SlideShare, and I see an ad about online education. And that was posted by WizIQ, and we started engaging more with WizIQ and understanding what is this online classroom all about. So we started doing some public seminars on the platform that started engaging a lot of users. So I was teaching Vedic maths as the proposition to make maths fun and simple, and using the capabilities of WizIQ as a platform to teach the same. So we've been associated with WizIQ for the last like 8 years, and it's been fun throughout, because riding the wave of e-learning, I think that's definitely makes a difference to my company. Today we are in 7 countries, and WizIQ is the backbone of our company, and we can't live without it. Thank you.
So what I understood was WizIQ opens the door to other countries.
Totally. It goes beyond barriers, I must say. And scale, people looking up, the scale is certainly there with the concepts of WizIQ virtual classroom.
So I would like to come back to this initial discussion about learner engagement, and want to connect to what has been said before. I think somebody in the earlier panel talked about recognizing the difference between the pre-internet world and the post-internet world. And I want to draw attention to the pre-mobile world and the post-mobile world. I think one very important aspect about learner engagement is that the mobile is the access device, and that is where the engagement happens because they're already very well connected to the mobile. But our brilliant bodies like CBSE actually ban the mobile in the school. So they think that mobile is a distractive device, a device which is an engaging device. Instead of using it to engage the learners with what they already are, they want to give some stupid classroom model in which they expect the learners to take an interest. Then they force compulsory attendance to stay because the classroom is completely disengaging and completely uninteresting. So they say you will not get the degree unless you do 75% attendance in class. The Microsoft person talked about that HP ad about the approach and soch. I think if you look at these two things, we come to this very important aspect that if you want learners to be engaged, you have to create an environment which is engaging. You cannot put engagement on top as an authority. And I think that is the core problem with education. Education does not begin with trying to encourage or induce learners to learn something because it is interesting, but because the authority says so. The other aspect which is very important is, and last panel was talking about business and money and exits and scaling. If you provide learner engagement, you get scaling. The reason we have had problems in scaling of the educational enterprises was that we wanted to use the same stupid government education system and say we will do this with computers. So something which is pretty bad without computers will continue to be bad with computers. So you need to fundamentally change what you are teaching, how you are teaching, and create positively an engaged learning experience. The role of the educator is therefore paramount. It's not the technology which will create engagement, thinking that you will put a few buttons and next and quiz. Even textbooks are very engaging. Those of you who have read good textbooks know that textbooks begin with a question, they give a puzzle, they do something, they can be quite engaging. A traditional teacher is quite engaging when it does that. But where online learning, because they've used online learning, although to me online learning today means mobile-based learning, where it catches the edge and nobody has noticed this seriously enough is what is called social learning. You see, when you look at a traditional classroom, and if your teaching model is one-on-one, and then you have a large number of people, then the thing degrades as 1 upon n, and therefore you say not more than 20 in a class or not more than 40 in a class, because your model was originally meant for one-on-one teaching. If you have a broadcast model, that is you're using videos, doesn't matter. You can teach millions of people, that is what MOOCs does. You've taught them, whether they learned it or not is a different issue completely. So what happens is when your model of teaching is a social learning model, that means all the learners are part of the cognitive team which is pursuing knowledge. Then you have Metcalfe's law coming in. So if there are n people, then n into n minus 1 upon 2 connections, n squared. So suddenly social learning improves with large learner cohorts. I think this is a very, very important aspect which people miss. And in fact, the entire education policy is warped because they think they should not have class more than 20. Class of 100 is a pretty good class. And if they can interact through the social thing, the cognitive surplus is enormous. I taught in IIT for 10 years. I mean, just imagine, I think I was quite good, but have 100 bright people remain quiet for 1 hour till I'm talking. If all they were vibrantly being participative in the project or whatever we would do, it would be a much better thing. So the key thing which I think is about learner engagement is the social learning part. The personalization, therefore, then comes in because you are not treating, see, in traditional geometry, he suggested math, geometry, everything is a point. There's nothing like a point in real life. In physics, everything is a point mass. There is nothing like a point mass in real life. Therefore, there is no such thing as a hypothetical, reasonable learner who absorbs everything that I say. Learners are of different types. There are learner dispositions, learner styles, learner uniqueness, and therefore, this whole idea of personalizing learning, using the cognitive surplus of the learners, producing social learning is what the future is about, and especially mobile-based learning enables that to happen. A very interesting question comes then. So is there no limit to it? My own feeling is that the people who were driving MOOCs were people who had never seen large populations. See, in India, we see millions of people just like that. They had never seen. So they were astounded when 70,000 people came for something, or 50,000 people came, and they got enamored of that. But learning is not broadcasting. The fact that you can broadcast to a large number of people on the internet does not mean that learning has happened, and especially if you want learning as competency change, skill change, behavioral change, it's a very different thing. So the question that is to be asked is, what is the right size of a learning cohort, even when you have all this technology? For this, a very interesting discussion has happened in an essay by J.B.S. Halden in 1926, What is the Right Size? And he talks about animals and rats and elephants and so on, and he says that you cannot have a mouse which is as big as an elephant because of fundamental reasons. And he actually goes on to lots of things. You might like to look up that essay. You just Google on being the right size by J.B.S. Halden. So you start saying, so what is the right size of a Facebook group or a learning cohort or an e-learning cohort? And the answer to that comes from somebody called Robin Dunbar, which is called the Dunbar number. So he did a lot of research. He's an evolutionary anthropologist, if you will. And he said that about 150 is the right number of people with whom we can have meaningful social contacts, in the sense that we know the name, we know this, and we relate to it. This is called the Dunbar number. He's come to a number like 150, but in some places it is about 100 and so on. And lo and behold, WhatsApp has a group limit size of 100. So we actually explored a few courses run entirely on WhatsApp, and we found that it was an amazing experience. We had a course where there were vice chancellors and professors, Dr. Sharma was part of it, and so on. And we concluded that for social learning, this is a very good tool. So in summary, what I'm saying is, WizIQ is a great tool for the massive MOOC kind of a thing. WordPress is a very nice tool for content, because you can support a website, so all the content which won't change during the term can be put as pages, and all the content that is dynamically changing you put as posts, and you use WhatsApp for intensive interaction and engage. Now, while the number is 100, you can have a number of WhatsApp groups happening simultaneously. So it doesn't mean that if you have 1,000 cohort, you can't deal with that. It will be 10 WhatsApp group, each with a certain person who's making that. Now, if you haven't grasped all this in the kind of short time that I had, I put it up on a blog. You just need to remember mmpant.wordpress.com, and the latest post on that is about this, giving it in detail, etc., etc. And of course, I'm happy to build on this both right here, and then you can contact me and electronically and so on.
So as we can see, learning doesn't stop with a presentation such as this. It goes on, and it's on the internet. So you're all welcome to. Thank you so much for doing that. Yes. Our next speaker.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you. See, I'd be sharing my perspective not as an administrator, but also as a teacher who has taught in many countries. See, gone are the days when we used to say that, okay, mobile not allowed, this, that. But when you look at the current ground reality, you see a student is entering in a class, the Google glasses with the Apple Watch and 2 mobile phones in the hand. And when you say, okay, you switch off your mobile phone, you don't do this and that. So it is not the way. The thing is that how we can take advantage of what they have, because all the learning happens in the domain, what you already know, and from where, how you can build on there. Secondly, we also know that everybody has got a very unique style of learning. Some are like activist learner, some are reflective learner. We all know that. So how we can create a model which can suit to the majority of our learners' requirement. So that is again a very, a test, which a teacher will be doing it on and off and see what works and what doesn't work. What I have seen in my experience in many countries, that you need to find an engaging model, that how you can engage, how you can involve the students, and how they can participate more and more. And then evaluation comes naturally from there, rather than you base all the learning that how to evaluate and those kind of things. So in this way, you are designing everything which is going in a very complete cohesion, and which is also catering to the need of learner and also fulfilling the learning outcomes. So I have seen that when you prescribe the pre-readings, sometimes a student was coming reading, sometimes they are not, because we feel many times we have given tasks, you should have come prepared, but we also need to look at the ground reality, that how many will really come prepared. So we create systems like that, we create a PDF document, and we say that, okay, the moment you're reading it, after 2 pages, there will be a question. And unless you answer that question, you are not able to read the remaining part of the PDF document. Or building those kind of videos, which will again, you see the video, you again get something which can validate, are you really watching the video well or not? And these kind of things can always be created by professors like us. And there are certain sites, I don't want to name them, there are certain software which provide you the facility that the moment your student is logging to the system, how much of learning they have already done, how much is the level of preparation of the class. So in that way, you are very much prepared that how to handle the class, how to create that learning experience there. So I think we have to be very careful about that. And as Dr. Pant was mentioning, that learning from each other, how we can build into the whole e-learning model. Because we all know that around 35 to 40% of the learning is coming from peer interaction, and how we are able to really leverage that. So one is the WhatsApp group, what he was also mentioning. I also use it very much in my teaching and learning. Recently, I've been teaching a course on self-awareness and leadership. And there were a lot of questions. What do you love about life and why? And people were reflecting about it. And what kind of inspiring thing you like and why? So many people start talking, interacting, sharing, and that was a very, very big learning experience. So we need to create those kind of very engaging models to which can capture the imagination of the students and which should be very fulfilling experience. Another thing is reflecting. The reflection is very, very important, which sometimes we are not building into our learning philosophy. So we have created a cache model: knowledge, attitude, skills, habits. What did you learn today? Why this learning happened? And what was your contribution in that learning? And then linking it further to, the application, what kind of application are possible, so that the whole knowledge is converting into the wisdom. So I think we can have a lot of such thing, and sharing forums are there. In the classroom, we can use the clicker facility, that we can take the votes. How much are you getting engaged? So they can use their mobile phones and say, yes, I agree, I don't agree, somewhat agree. So you get them, and also you can see the comments as well at the same time, that how many are agreeing and why they are agreeing. Then you can pick up a question, okay, if you're agreeing, then you can make the cold calls and like that. So that improves the whole learning environment. So students are no longer just a passive listener, but they make a lot of contribution in that learning. So these are something, and one thing more I want to say, that many times we're just trying to fill the mind with this knowledge, this information. But also we need to think about how to learn from emptying your mind. Because many of the sanskar, many of the values are coming from the past, or coming from their family tradition, and so on and so forth. Unless we tell them very clearly that you have to start from zero. You have to, like the way you see that, don't live in abhav or prabhav, but live in your own swabhav. And from there, how you can empty the mind, and then that is a more usefulness of those online modern and e-learning courses would be very, very magnified. So I believe that WizIQ is a very wonderful platform, and it can make a big impact for the whole teaching learning process. And so we in Bharat, our name Bharat is, that Bha means Prakash and Rat means going towards, usme Rat hai, going towards that. So our whole thing is, that we are in the pursuit of knowledge and wisdom. That is the reason we also have Guru. Guru means somebody who remove ignorance and darkness and take us towards the light. So I think creation of these kind of courses which can make a difference in the life of people and make a bigger purpose, so that should be taken as a mission. Thank you.
Yes, so from what I understand, and I think that maybe people aren't familiar with the reflective process, that actually you're not only connecting to the content, it's not about hoarding information or consuming information, it's about learning it yourself.
Yes.
You're in the equation and you're learning about yourself as a learner, as a person, as someone who connects with others, in addition to the social learning.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. My observations are mostly centered on my experience of working online and also studying online for some of the courses. Now, I'll share with you some of the experiences, and also I'll try to draw on those experiences to give you some tips, if you can call it, on how to engage your learner online. The first thing we need to accept from the very beginning that when you are teaching online, there is no fixed syllabus, right? Because you are doing with a bunch of learners whom you don't know, you don't see. So you know your learners as you keep on interacting in your course. So if you are using, for example, WizIQ, and you are taking a virtual class, and in course of your class, you are learning about your learner, their needs. So you have to be quite flexible. So you should be prepared, meaning I'm always prepared to change my syllabus, to change my topics, to change my activities, to vary my assessment, right? So it has to be quite flexible. Another thing is very important is the kind of the courses which are available online today. Because I see a lot of competition is going on. There are so many service providers today offering online courses. So some of them are very reputed universities which are offering online courses, and then also private entrepreneurs offering online courses. And in some of the online courses, I have observed the content that is offered is a kind of a repudiation of the face-to-face content. So what, as a teacher, I do in face-to-face context, I just simply upload those activities and those learning materials in online. But basically, we need to accept here the way we actually learn online is not the way we learn in face-to-face context. So if it is a completely online course and there is no face-to-face component built into it, then you have to continuously think about how your learner is interacting with content. And one of the keys to engage your learner is to observe their engagement and interaction with the content and be prepared to, change your content, change your activities, and change your stuff. The other thing which I want to talk about, that when you are engaging your learner, you can engage your learner better if you can vary your manner of presentation. For example, if you think about an activity where you have used a particular text, the next time don't come up with another text. You may think about using a particular image, right? And can, facilitate interaction among your students. You can think about not a very big, long video, but very, very short video, 1 minute video, 2 minute video. Choose a point that you want to focus on and you want to develop certain skills of your learner from there on, or facilitate discussions from there on. So choose that thing very carefully. And as we always talk about, as we now talk about 21st century learning skills and stuff, we focus definitely on a kind of a critical communication skills and also on reflections, problem-oriented sort of learning, inquiry-based learning, adaptive learning. So all sorts of buzzwords are there. And then you have invested on a learning management system. So you have a big learning management system. I was going around, even when I was having the lunch, I could hear the LMS, 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 LMS. So that means you believe that you can manage the learning, right? In my 42 years of life, I can tell you, you can never manage a learning. It's impossible. I have not been able to manage my own learning, and how can my teacher manage my learning? So it's a kind of a dream. I'm going too strong here, but it's a kind of a dream. You can manage your learning of your learners. You can't, basically. So they will learn in the way they like. And one of the things that we talked about, some of my co-panelists talked about, is a kind of having a social space. So even if you are using LMS, think about giving your learners a social space so that whatever they are learning, whatever they are discussing here regarding their activities and stuff, they can take those skills they develop here and transfer them to the social space. So the learning becomes a little more holistic than perhaps you think about. And I think I will not take much time. I'll talk about two challenging areas. For example, one challenging area is giving feedback, and another is actually assessing our learners online. That's a big challenge. How to give feedback. So in most cases, I have observed that the feedback is, no, you are discussing something, you do an activity, and then the teacher actually gives you a kind of a written feedback. Right? So that's mostly we see online. But let's personalize it. There are plenty of tools available online, screen capturing softwares available. You can give a short video feedback, right? Feedback to your learners. That makes it much more personalized. For example, as if the teacher is talking to the learner about the assignment that he or she has submitted. That makes much more interesting. Of course, when you are thinking of your assignments, completely vary it. For example, the assessment can be, of course, we do it. We have self-check quizzes. We have all sorts of stuff built into it. But at the same time, it's very important to vary it, to vary the space, and also to vary the assignment tasks. So, for example, if you give your learner one task is a quiz, don't come up with another quiz at the end of the activity, because that actually makes the learner, oh my goodness, another quiz. Okay, so don't give another quiz. Think about kind of different kind assessment that you can do. For example, I would suggest that you give your learners a different kinds of sort of stuff, like you tell them, for example, you can assess them through some small projects. You can also assess them, you can ask them to discuss in the group and come up with a kind of group presentation and upload it somewhere, so you can see the group presentation, and they work collaboratively amongst themselves, and then they upload it. So you think about how you want to assess them. Tell them beforehand that this is how I'm going to assess you, right? And this is how I'm going to mark you. And then vary the assessment strategies, styles, techniques. Never allow them to feel bored. Keep the excitement of learning going. So if you can, the only way to motivate them and engage them is to keep the excitement and also surprise built into your learning content. Thank you.
Thank you so much. As you heard, educators know how to engage learners. I'd just like to share what I do. I've been teaching online face-to-face using technology since 1993, which is a long time ago, so I've had lots of practice. You learn about your learners, you learn about yourself. It's a very, very important learning experience. It's about the experience. It's not about the content. Because if you're going to get content, and today it's the information age, we've got lots of content out there, but what are you going to do with it? What do you do when you look for something? You know what you're looking for and you know what you want to do with it. But in school, we have to figure out ways to engage learners with information that's relevant to them. What I do is I get my students to teach. I teach them how to teach. And technology allows me to do that because there's so many different ways of sharing information, including Facebook, the social media. They can do it anywhere, as long as they teach someone else. And that's the best way to learn. We all know that. when we teach our parents, when we teach our children, when we share information, we're actually reinforcing and getting ourselves excited about the information. So as far as I'm concerned, information only goes as far as you can use it and produce new information. And I think projects is one way. I think we've got time for questions. If there are any questions out there. Yes, I see. There's a question there.
A microphone there, please. Here, the gentleman in purple. Right here. I'll give you mine.
Until we get the mic there, there's a point here that one of the speakers wants to
I
make.
just wanted to make a point here that
Hello.
you mentioned that there's so much information everywhere and the system overload is happening. So I wanted to draw on the works of a renowned educationist. His name is Shagota Mitra from the TED fame. I don't know how many of you are aware of his work. He talks about the school in the cloud. And so for a curious student, you have self-organized learning environments where student can just, you can pose a question to the student and the student can just go online, search and educate and even teach what he's learning. So that's what happens with a lot of content which is available online. Okay, we can now take the question.
Hello. Nellie, my name is Pankaj. I have a small community, like you are a community builder, as you told, of Learn Tourism. I have developed it since it's almost 3+ years. And I have built the community of around 1,700 people who are curious for the learning tourism. So how you nurture your community, how you build your community. I mean, I have been on Facebook, using Twitter also, but how you build and nurture your community. Since you are in your introduction, we got to hear that you are a community builder and how it helps in your education.
Well, you can ask some people who came all the way from around India just to meet me. How do you do it? You do it by being yourself. You care about people, and I think that's a trait of most teachers. Teachers love people. They love their students as they would their children, and they give everything to them. That's how you build communities. You love you love people, and I think this is something that technology can't do for us. Business people can't do it. You have to lower your guards, and you have to just be yourself, and enjoy the company of people, and that's how you do it. One person at a time, if it needs be, and you coach them online.
May I add to Nellie? I think one of the ways you can build a community is be nice to people, ready to share. Nellie does it, shares it, and share your time and energy if you are left with any time and energy. Also, keep energizing your community. So for example, once upon a time you build it and you forget it. No. Keep going back to your community now and then. So your community is with you to support you, and you support your community as the community leader.
And I think that's what happens in the classroom, by the way. That's what we do in the classroom. We build relationships among students. Well, everyone else can speak about that.
You build a lot of trust, you build friends online in your online tribe, in your classroom. Don't say that you're being pedantic all the time. Just be friends. The key here is love. I mean, that's what Nellie also pointed out. The key here is love, build trust, and I'm sure you're going to get your students there. Yeah.
I have, actually my question was also on the same lines. In the classroom type of teaching, we speak with every student. We can judge their behavior. We can understand at what level they are. And you rightly said we have to change our curriculum, we have to change our way of teaching as per the requirement or as per the batch. If their demand is for going for the image kind of things, or we have to be flexible as per the requirement. But in the online education, we are not face to face with the customers, with the students. So the biggest challenge today is how to bring the emotions while we are doing the online teaching, how to understand the human behavior. And obviously, I have seen lots of cases where somebody else is doing the classes and not the actual student. It happens in the corporate also. Only thing is they have to show that somebody have attended, and even the assessment exams are also given by somebody else, not the actual student. So how to bring that intelligence in the online education so that the right people are joining and they are actually getting education?
You know, that's an interesting question, because if I would tell you the other way around, after being involved in online teaching for so many years, I would say that it's a lot easier to connect, and I think everybody would agree with me here, it's a lot easier to connect with people online than it is face-to-face. It's nicer to meet face-to-face after you connect online.
And I want to add that people who are shy, they become more open online and they ask their questions. So the responsibility of the teacher, what I feel sometimes would be to get the student to say yes. Yes, yes. Say, if you ask what is Vedic maths, how much is 2 plus 2, do you get this? Ask. And get them to say yes, and then you build trust and you build love and engagement happens.
See, I think you're still looking at the technology which was of yesterday. Every phone today has a camera, and there is technology called facial analytics, which can record your expressions as you are doing this. I see this all the time when I go in the metro. People are doing something and they are smiling, they're doing this, etc. No teacher can observe the 30 odd students and interpret this thing, but there is analytics data which will interpret that for everything and could analyze and tell you which are engaged, which are disengaged, and so on and so forth. So therefore, the future is very different. You're getting all the analytics which are used in the business world available for what is being called learner analytics, to look at what the person found difficult, how it is moving, and so on. Impersonation is a different issue, because impersonation is where you are forcing people to attend and they don't want to attend. I think we don't agree with that model. We are talking about orienting people who really want to do that. So the engagement must happen before that people attend sessions where they really want to learn something. So many of these limitations are getting overcome.
Can I also
I
add
think
something?
they also enjoy the fact that they can connect with people from areas that they don't know, and they feel more comfortable. You must have heard of this, that strangers often feel closer to other strangers. They can talk to a stranger more readily than they can talk to someone close to them. So that's what happens, I think. That's the connection online.
I just wanted to add one experience here when we started having classes of some Indian students and their counterpart in the US. So we started giving them a lot of very interesting projects. Like the US student were given this project that Walmart is setting up operations in India. What should be their strategy? And Indian students were given the project that suppose you want to sell nano in the US, then how and what kind of thing you should think about. So it also depends that what kind of projects and what kind of life you bring on those forum. And then if somebody respond, then how quickly you also respond. That is also very important, because there are some very encouraging comment by a professor immediately, and then sharing something immediately there. That really furthers the conversation, because everybody is looking for some appreciation of something. So I do believe if a teacher who is really caring, he or she would be very successful, and also it also build your own personal brand. And you see that how many people are getting transformed by looking at your videos and your lectures and all. So that is also, that bigger picture also has to be kept in mind.
The time is up.
Yes.
I just want to say that this is the last panel discussion, and just want to say that my experience with WizIQ has been phenomenal, fantastic, and I personally feel from the bottom of my heart that the day is not far when the whole of India will learn on WizIQ. Yeah.